Hey everyone, welcome back to another live webinar. I'm very excited about this one because it's a workshop and I love workshops and we'll learn about some new stuff. We have Pratim and Arvind joining us from SurrealDB and Hacktoberfest is going on, so it's a very good month to do sessions like this. First of all, I want to give a huge thank you to SurrealDB for giving me this nice hoodie. It's very good. My favorite so far. Pink really looks nice on me, I realized. But anyway, so today we'll learn about databases, answer some questions as well. It's being recorded as well, so you can watch it later on. Before we get started, let's do some introductions. Arvind, you have to go first, and then Pratim.
Sure, definitely. Thanks, Kunal, for having me here today. I'm really glad to come back on your channel. I think it's been some time, and really great to see all the content that's there on Kunal Kushwaha's channel. Really glad. So today we're going to talk about SurrealDB. It's going to be a crash course, even though Kunal said it's like a workshop, and it's still not exhaustive. And there's a lot of things that are not covered today, but then it definitely should excite you to build a new app, or if you're considering a side project, I think that would be great. So that being said, I'm Arvind. If you are meeting me for the first time, I am a developer advocate, and I do many things with developers. I like telling stories and sharing whatever I learned on the internet to people. So that's who I am. And yeah, you know my coordinates. If you want to talk to me, yeah, you can DM me always. Over to you, Pratim.
Hi everyone, I am Pratim Bhosle. I am also a developer advocate with SurrealDB, and yeah, I'm based out of Bangalore. It's been fun working on different applications with SurrealDB, and I'm excited for today's workshop. We'll see what different things we come across, and yeah, I think we can get started if we are all done.
Amazing. I believe Arvind would like to share his screen first. Let me
Yeah.
just do that. And by the way, we'll be answering live questions as well. We have people joining from all over the world, which is nice to see. Venezuela, that's nice. And feel free to ask your questions in the chat. This is being streamed at so many places, so make sure you check out SurrealDB's YouTube channel as well. Lastly, I will leave all the links in the description below, all the resources and everything, and send in your questions in the chat and we'll answer those as well. All right, Arvind, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Kunal. I'm glad to do this session today, more specifically on initiating something for developers, and it's as it energizes more people to build interesting applications. So this is like a crash course, but I'll try to make sure that answer all your questions as we go by. And the agenda today for the session is we'll introduce you what is SurrealDB, and of course, like there are so many databases out there, and why SurrealDB, what's so special, and then talking to SurrealDB and a demo which Pratim would cover and more details about it later. So yeah, I also want to make sure that it's very informal. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop in between, and maybe Kunal or Pratim could interject. There is Naira, who is also my colleague, she's joining, and then she could answer your questions on the stream. So please shoot any questions that you have in between then and there, and we'll try to answer, or if it's coming next, it's fine. So that being said, I think
Just post the questions on the screen, like you will see the questions like this when
yeah.
we have, so that way you can see it on the screen and then you can answer.
Yeah, exactly. I think like both of my screens are covered, but otherwise I think I'll try to answer. If you could probably put up, no issues. So yeah, I think whenever I try to do these sessions, usually I come across to try to tell a story where the problems that we live as a developer, and whenever we try to build apps like these, or choose technology stacks. So I'm going to cover it in a very informal fashion, and also like give you a detailed overview as well. So imagine you're a developer, and then and one fine morning, and of course, like you've been doing a lot of logic coding every day, and then one sudden day, like you feel like something that's been burning in your workplace or across your circle, and then you realize this is the next big idea, and at 3 a.m. that you realize, or in the shower, which happens to me all the time, and you want to really can't contain the excitement and really want to build that particular app. It could be a mobile app, it could be maybe a web app or a desktop app, whatever, right? You immediately realize that, okay, there is something that's needed, and I would want to build it. And immediately, as an engineer, the first instinct to me is like, I will find out what is the best technology stack that could scale to a million users, concurrent users. I'm not talking about someone like 100 users. I'm talking about million concurrent users. I'm talking about more and more people. So as developers, we feel that we need the best technology stack that is used by, like, say, Google or big tech, right? So and then we spend a lot of time researching the best technology stack, but end up still confusing whether I should use that new JavaScript framework that has come, or like maybe a cross platform framework that is just unveiled by, so whatever, the popular dev company out there. So we spend quite a bit of time trying to figure out what's the best technology stack, right? And I hope you're with me in this journey. I'll share more information on this area. And then you suddenly discover that, oh, I need a database. It's not just the framework or the the way that it is being done. I just need a solid database to store all the user data or whatever the business data that I'm going to do. And after reading a lot of things, and then you realize, okay, I need a database. And then you start developing and you start building this thing. And then one day you realize that, oh, I need a search functionality. And this is one of my interesting areas, because whenever I started building apps, and there is a table, and I'm trying to display the table or the information somewhere, and eventually I want a search bar somewhere and in the app, and then I start to enable indexing on the traditional RDBMS. I want to do more semantic search, or like search with mistakes. People do all of that, right? Filtering, face setting, whatever, right? Something like e-commerce. And then the traditional RDBMS doesn't scale well, or is not compatible, and I do a lot of gymnastics with SQL. It becomes slow and it doesn't really work. So then I really realized, like, I need something like a search store that is more specific to search functionality, and I probably implement that. And then I realized that there's more relations, and maybe I want to do a social network within my app, or I have those multiple tables, like one table with 20 columns, and then 5 other tables that are related in some way, and I need a graph feature to probably enable that relationship. Or I want to do a recommendation engine to showcase that these are the specific restaurants or whatever, right, in the application that I'm trying to build. So I need a graph and machine learning features to make my app more interesting for the users. And eventually, even though I launched it or I did not launch it, I started to build on more of these technology stack pieces, these small modules that end up becoming bigger and bigger. And you realize that there are too many systems and too many things to handle. And this is a very common problem across, like, startups. People are building in small medium businesses, or even someone who's trying to build like an enterprise large scale app, or a bank, anyone, right? So everyone realized that this problem that is existing, and it's always there. And eventually, that's where you realize that this is not going to scale, or even if it's going to scale, it doesn't work cost wise or performance wise or many other tangents, right? So that's where I realized that there is a need for databases to probably do things more cost efficient wise, and as well as, like, scalability as well, and also, like, more importantly, for all of us to build more applications, developer experience, right? Trying to become the best devex, like, give out a best devex for people who are storing data within these tables that's already there. So this session is more about talking about those developer problems and how SurrealDB exactly aims to solve those. And that's why we call it as crash course on SurrealDB. We are going to crash, definitely. It's not going to be exhaustive, because the database is, like, awesome, and I still don't know a lot of things because it's so awesome. There's more to learn. So that being said, yeah, I just want to again do the same, cover the same topic that we spoke about in memes. Maybe I'll also talk about in the architecture, so that we are clear about what we are talking. So like imagine an application and a database. You use usually an SQL, and then to talk to the databases, maybe you are using an ORM or whatever, right? So I think end of the day you are building this database and application sequence with SQL, and this is how like the initial application would look like. And later you realize that it's a cache store because I want some data that needs to be more available and quickly available to users, maybe sometimes nearer to the users, so that that particular data is easily queryable, like a key value store or a cache store that you could quickly answer because it's queried more regularly. And then you have use a JSON or some sort of query language specific to that particular cache server, and then you start to sync the data between your database and your cache store. And eventually, like I spoke previously, you would also want to a search server, because I think your application need to have a search functionality, and you again probably your developers and everyone would need to learn a JSON or another query language. uh, Sometimes it's called some specific domain specific language to that particular server. And eventually, you do this, you ended up already having like three types of servers, an application system that's anyway going to be bigger. And then like maybe some years later, and you also get to a stage where you want to capture all this data for backups, for compliance, for whatever reason, right? You want to sync the data with a data warehouse, or for reporting purposes for your business, or maybe other teams who want to integrate your data to some downstream system, like say logistics, or if you're an e-commerce company or something else, right? So there is also like, as and when the changes are happening on the database from the source of truth, you also want to sync it back to multiple of these systems elsewhere. And that's where change data capture comes into picture. And traditional DBs are not really scalable as such for all of these use cases. I would not say that traditional databases or RDBMS systems, which are really popular, Postgres, MySQL, they're really awesome in many ways, but as well they are not like cut for this size, and they are also developed a bit older, like in a decade or old, and they are mainly specifically developed for those use cases which are not cloud native elsewhere in the previous times. At the same point of time, it doesn't end there as well. You, on the application side, when you're developing, you would want with the newer regulations like GDPR, privacy and all, you want to scope out the data, you want to set permissions, who could access the data. And what happens with developers is like, you try to bring that logic to the application rather than putting it in a database. In some companies, you end up writing stored procedures which reside in database, but then here, like you ideally bring the data, the business logic into the application, and you try to write it out. Or if you are looking for, say, a quick, simple, cost efficient workflow that you want to implement on the end, and you write a function or use a function environment to run this simple code snippets, which are now called very popularly edge functions or serverless functions. So there are many use cases that's surrounding this data itself and the database itself. And that's where I guess there is a need for a specific data platform or a data abstraction engine, even you could also call it a database, to solve many of these problems with a single shot. And that's what SurrealDB exactly aims to do. It's a scalable, distributed, document and graph focused database. And if I want to call it as in one single line, it's the ultimate multimodal database for the web that is transitioning or transition to a real time uh, than that from a batch system, right? So it's very useful, and it's also more cloud native, and it enables all these systems. It's also like source available, or otherwise open source, that you could use, contribute. SurrealDB is written in Rust, lightweight, binary, and also enables a lot of these use cases through different modes. Now, when I talk about all these use cases, you would have thought that, oh, this looks really big and it's really massive, and maybe you would not be able to run it in single node. It's a distributed system. You might think about many things here. Architecturally, SurrealDB also is simple. The core idea of building or using SurrealDB is enabling best developer experience and making sure that it's simple to use something like this, and enabling all the use cases for the developers. So there is a single node or a distributed types architecture. In the single node architecture, you could do it in memory, you could run it in the browser using WASM. I know some of you have already been building in the WASM side, and quite excited about it. So we also support integrations to WASM, and also like more in that area as well. And then you have SurrealKV, which is a key value store. If you are very much interested into the data structures and want to learn about a Radix try that we have recently released, and it's also an open source project. If you are looking at some data structure and interesting things about it, let us know. We could talk about it as well. And as well as like other databases. The beauty of SurrealDB is you could also use a single node and distribute it, but also like with other storage engines. SurrealKV is more written in a storage engine that is written in Rust and native to SurrealDB. But then you can also use other storage drivers or engines like RocksDB, SpeedDB, and FoundationDB and TyKV. Again, they are open source, and then you could also build on top of it. And SurrealDB will manage everything from single console. The learning curve is also less, but you also leverage all of those beautiful functionality and enable those use cases very easily. And yeah, I think as I spoke about all of these, and I also spoke about SurrealDB's developer experience, and I can't stop without saying these things that enable all these use cases, which is the Surreal query language. I know that many people talk about NewSQL type of databases, which is also like a different category. It was promoted like that, but then in turn we also want to embrace the traditional SQL like syntax. And then you see most of this NewSQL doesn't really go away very far from the SQL like structure, but also the name somehow rhymes with SQL, which is Surreal query language, but we call it as SurrealQL. And it enables a lot of use cases, makes it easy to insert object light data into your database easily. And then live queries, which enable you to automatically get events or insertions on the data and get you notified about the data space. I think Pratim in a minute would talk about SurrealQL and live queries as well. And there are many other features like which we are not discussing today, like the indexing and vectors. If you are building in the GPT or AI space, and if you are looking at embedding, if you have come across any other libraries like LangChain, SurrealDB is already there, and then you could simply use SurrealDB as a vector store and enable it as a search engine on the existing data that you already have, and simply like use APIs like OpenAI to to write any AI focused applications. And then yeah, I think there are more things around ML, change feeds that we just spoke about, which is like change data capture. All of this in a single box, and also like with a single interface, and really less learning curve. You could use an API, you could use a library, or you could use something like a command line interface that we provide. Yeah, we are also like having an operator on Kubernetes and a Docker container if you want to run it anywhere else, and that's also available. So yeah, I think I'll give it away to Pratim, and she will cover more about SurrealQL and probably give a demo about how SurrealDB, if your application is built on SurrealDB, how it would look like. Yeah, over to you, Pratim.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Arvind. And my God, there were so many concepts explained. And I noticed a lot of folks had some basic questions about how do we get started with SurrealDB? What is Surreal query language? Do you need any sort of basic understanding of databases to understand SurrealDB? And I think we can go ahead and explore this. What do you think, Kunal?
Yeah, I'm gonna put some questions on the screen and we can do a rapid fire.
Definitely.
All right, that's one. While I look for another one, you can read the question and.
Awesome. If possible, I want to see how do you connect to a Docker container to query the DB. Following the docs in Docker Hub, the command fails. Maybe I'm missing something. Fanner, the best way to get quick answers to any issues coming up is via connecting to our community as well as to the whole team on Discord. But we do have documentation around the Docker command and everything on our website. Please drop us a message on Discord, and if we'll try our best to solve any issues around your errors. Is it a free or paid software? Well, SurrealDB is free for everyone to use, try it out, test it out, play around with it. There are more things to it. Arvind, would you like to explain some details about if it is free or paid software?
Yeah, it is completely free, and all of the things that I mentioned here, you could give it a shot today. That's where I don't know if you missed the GitHub banner that I've put up. You could go to github.com/SurrealDB/SurrealDB, and you would find the SurrealDB source code, and you could download the binary from anywhere, and then give it a shot on your laptop without any cloud instance or something. So yes, it is free, and yeah, so you could give it a shot, and please join our community if you have more questions on this specific year. Francisco, yeah, Karen, SurrealDB used as a Docker image or container? Obviously, yes, you could use it. We have a Docker image as well as a K8s operator, so that you could use it in the regular Kubernetes environment if you are trying to like orchestrate as well. Yeah.
Well, we all our documentation is pretty much easy to follow, and we do have a lot of blogs and tutorials that keep coming up regularly. There are also some great collaborative articles and blogs written by amazing folks online, so you can definitely check them out. And yeah, thank you, Francesco, for being a part of the stream today. Isn't SurrealDB use only Rust as implementation language? SurrealDB can be used with any. We do have SDKs for a lot of languages. SurrealDB is built using Rust, so I hope that clears.
Yeah, if you are looking at contributions, we welcome that. We also have a Hacktoberfest challenge running. We'll talk about it more in the future. But then, if you're talking about do I need to learn Rust to contribute to SurrealDB? Not exactly. We also have a lot of languages that you could contribute to. Yeah. The SurrealDB has a vector database. Yeah, I mean, yes, SurrealDB can also work like a vector store. We have vector functions that are in 1.0, so please take it for a spin. You can enable indexing, and you could also get all of that. Which application can SurrealDB use? Pratim, you want to answer that?
Actually, almost any application that requires that would have been using multiple databases would be the best application to pick up SurrealDB. Would be the best application. Yeah. So I don't think there are any areas where you can't use SurrealDB. Definitely, there will be times when you would decide how you want to use SurrealDB, whether you want to use SurrealDB as an embedded database, whether you want to use it in majorly for some particular features. But I definitely cannot say that SurrealDB cannot be used for a particular database. Yeah. So
yeah, it's SurrealDB open source. Yeah, so SurrealDB is source available, and you could freely use it. Whether you would want to call it as open source or whatever it is, you could decide. But then yes, it is there, it's out there, a source is all out there, and it's really freely permittable for you to ask more about it. And then I think there are a lot of questions about Docker. I think we have a Docker container link that's pasted here. You could use it. What are the different ways to document? Yeah, go ahead.
So this is something I will be talking during my presentation, how you can represent relationships between records in SurrealDB. And this is particularly my favorite topic to talk about. I am also exploring and learning every day. So I will try to keep it short in this presentation, but you can expect more documentation and content coming around explaining how different relationships around records work in SurrealDB.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead with the presentation and answer some remaining questions because we're getting new ones at the end of the session.
Definitely. So yeah, as Arvind mentioned that there are a plethora of ways how SurrealDB can help with your next application, and I did see some basic questions around SurrealQL, which is a query language, which is the query language for SurrealDB. So today we'll be talking about some basic concepts of SurrealQL, which will help you get started. And the documentation is always there, but these are some concepts that should help you understand SurrealQL better. So in terms of understanding record IDs, I hope this meme makes a better impact in making it clear how record IDs are different from the regular SQL IDs. You can think of record IDs as an enhanced version of SQL IDs with way more capabilities and without the limitations of SQL IDs. But what exactly is a record ID? If you see the following query, which is select star from internet lead, this is a basic example where internet lead is a record ID. Now in this, if you see, the internet part is the record and lead is the ID, which together form a record ID in SurrealDB. And this is the basic unit that forms any field, that includes any field for SurrealDB. And for record ID, there are different ways you can have data in your record IDs. The data could either be a complex character, it could either be text, it could be numeric. It could also consist of arrays and parameters, which I haven't included in this presentation, but feel free to check it out on the documentation. This is a basic example for you to understand how record links work. Now, in the SQL world, you would compare the functionality of record links to the functionality of SQL joins. Now, joins helps you normally to connect two tables and to get the common data between these two tables, or basically help you find the connection between two tables. Similarly, record links help you connect two records with each other, but the difference here is record links do that without doing any table scans. Now, coming back to the SQL world, when you're doing joins, there is a table scan that happens on every single join that happens, because I'm pretty sure if you folks have an idea about how SQL joins work, a basic join statement has a lot of connectivity in it, which makes it complex as the database grows, as your data grows. But with record links, you can access the data with a dot notation. If you see the select statement here, we go ahead and say select friends dot name from person Toby. Your person Toby is our record ID, and from friends is again the record link that has been formed. Friends is a field from the person Toby, which has a record link with other fields. And once you do the basic query, you're going to see that we can easily get the common friends of Toby, which are Simon and Marcus. Next up, we have understanding what exactly did record links do in the last query. What it did basically is nothing but connect two records, use a dot notation to find the commonalities between the two records, and it directly points to the record ID, which is in something that happens in the SQL world. In the SQL world, as I mentioned, we have table scans happening. And yeah, that's all about how simple it is to create a record ID and a record link. Now, in SurrealQL, we have another way of connecting two records, which is a graph link. Now, a graph link, you can think of the graph link concept comes from the graph database. If you folks have a background about graph databases, it should be easy for you to pick up understanding how two nodes are connected in the graph world. In SurrealQL, you do this using graph links. And when you know that there are two, for example, there are two records which have a very natural connection between them, the best way to go forward is using a graph link. For example, you know that a person has written an article. So the written becomes the direct connection between the person and the article. So here, if you see the query here, the relate statement is generally used to create a graph edge between two records. And when you use a relate statement, what happens is you end up having an edge table. So the wrote, you see the wrote word in between, that is basically nothing but an edge table which has fields that is in, out, and the ID. Now in and out are more about the link that is formed between the person and the article. If you see here, in is the link from person and out is the link to the article. Okay, now that we have understood graph links also, let's talk a little bit about the demo that we are doing today. It's based upon Surreal Stickies, which is our not so basic notes app. It's definitely a way better version and a way more advanced version compared to any notes application that you might have seen, even in terms of the UI. But what exactly are we going to see ahead in this demo is how SurrealDB works on the backend and helps with creating a very quick application. And in front of you, you see a schema of the Surreal Stickies, which has 4 nodes. Now, if you see, there are the 3 nodes out of them are in pink and 1 node is in purple. The reason for them is because the pink nodes stand for the standard tables. Now, there is a whole concept of schema full and schema less in SurrealDB, which we won't be covering today, but I will definitely push you folks to go ahead and read more about that and see how you can switch between different types in SurrealDB. And so coming back to the topic, your sticky, user, and tag, these 3 tables are our standard normal tables, and the assigned to table is our edge table. Now, going back, what we discussed, we saw that wrote was our edge table, where wrote had in, out, and also the ID of the table of the record. Similarly, your assigned to is going to be our edge table. So let's go ahead and see what we can do with our Surreal Stickies. I am first going to go ahead and share my screen and give you a basic understanding about the schemas that are available in the application. Give me a minute. I'm going to share my screen. One minute. Cool. Just a minute. Is my screen visible? Can I get a yes or no?
Yeah, the code, VS Code is visible.
Yes, perfect. So we are going to see the schemas first, and then we will head over to the actual implementation of the application. The schemas that we are currently seeing is the schema for the user table. Now, one thing we haven't discussed yet is for any application, there comes a part of when it's a multi-user application or where there is complexity involved in terms of access, we include authentication. Now, normally, rather you would use a third-party authentication application or a third-party authentication software, but with SurrealDB, authentication is inbuilt. You can directly include the authentication logic in your query line, in your schema itself, and this is something that I will give a basic understanding and the walkthrough in the schema. So this is the schema for our user table, which, as I mentioned, is a schema full way we are doing ahead. And we have given it the permissions where the table is allowed to select, update. Anyone who enters the table is allowed to select, update, and delete. Another thing is, because the password is something that shouldn't be accessible to anyone, other than the person who's changing it, we have given the permissions for it to be none. This is some basic understanding around permissions, but something very interesting to look here is how you can assert a particular rule on a field. If you see here on the field name, we have asserted that the length of the name has to be more than 2. We have also made sure with username that the value is always lowercase. So this kind of logic can directly be included into your schema, and that is one thing that helps making the logic faster, and rather than you adding this logic on the backend. Now that we've seen the user table, let's go ahead and see the tag table. Now, if you folks remember the schema diagram that we saw before, we had a tag node. Now the tag node is basically going to connect with the user, because a user will add a tag to a sticky. And the whole concept of record links that we mentioned is, if you see here, we've defined a field owner on the tag, which is of type user record. And finally, we've also given some rules. We've asserted some rules here that the length of the name always has to be more than 0. Then let's see what happens when, yes. So if you notice here, when we are giving its permissions for the create, select, and update and delete, we have given it a different scope. Now, scope is authentication scope is also something that is possible in SurrealDB along with user scope. So do go ahead and check out the authentication documentation and what are the different ways you can fulfill authentication and permission with SurrealDB. Next up, we have sticky. Now, sticky is the sticky node that we would be adding details to, that we would be adding content to. You'll go ahead and see that our sticky nodes has 2 different colors, which is pink and purple. So that is also that is a field that we have, on which we're asserting that the value could be pink or purple. And finally, we are going to see the authentication schema, where we are using crypto functions, where you're basically matching the hashed passwords and seeing if the person who's logging into the system is the right person to log in. You have logic for your sign in and sign up right inside your query. And finally, the schema for the edge table, which is formed due to graph links, is here where the fields in and out are again defined. And we also have permission set for functions like create, select, update, and delete. Well, that is all about the schema. I am now quickly going to again share my screen and give the demo of the application that we've built. Yes. Cool. Is my skin? Yeah, I would once again need your help in telling if my screen is visible.
Yeah, it looks good.
I think I cannot hear you folks.
No, looks good.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, this is how the front page of Stickies application looks like, where you can sign in, sign up. Let's go ahead and sign up. Let's add Kunal's name. Name is Kunal. Kunal at 123. Kunal at 1234. Continue. Oops. So I think I've already created Kunal's name. Interesting. Let's check with me. Okay. I think I've basically made everyone's. Right, let's sign in. Jamie. Let's try to sign in with the one that we have. Yes. So I think I've had a lot of sign-ups already. So I just signed in into Jamie's note. So this was already there. Let's add some details. Thank you for joining this session. And let's add a tag of example, greetings. Let's select that greeting. Cool. Now let's add another note that says, please let us know what you liked the most. Oops. About today's session. Cool, and let's add a feedback tag to this. Added, done. Yeah, this is how the notes application works on the backend. As we've already seen, the schema is what is helping us update the data. And the last functionality, which Arvind had mentioned a little bit about, was live queries. The whole demo for this is available on SurrealDB.world website page. You can go ahead and see the complete live demo that was done in the conference. But as this is a crash course, we are just doing a basic workflow of this. I'm gonna open another, because I want to show how the live queries functionality works. I am just going to open another dashboard, a tab, and just going to copy this. Cool. So you see that the data is pretty much the same on both the sides. Now let's see if it can give us live updates. Tweet about today's session at SurrealDB. I hope this is right. I haven't checked, but yeah, that's it. So we also have the live queries functionality working. If you want to learn more about the code, the link to the code is on the presentation. I will share the presentation again, and it is also available in our examples folder on our repository. So feel free to go ahead and check that out. I am now going to give back the session to Arvind. Oops. I think you're on mute, Arvind. Yeah.
Thanks, Pratim. I think you covered a lot of stuff. Yeah, I would want to like answer most of the questions, but yeah, I also want to.
Let me just put in the remaining questions that we have
Yeah.
on the screen.
But before, I want to cover the Hacktoberfest challenge, and then like we could also go to the questions as well.
Okay. Yeah, let's do the Hacktoberfest one, then we can end the stream with another rapid fire thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, sharing the screen now.
Yes. We are doing a Hacktoberfest challenge on the same. Some of you are asking questions about whether SurrealDB cross a specific framework or a specific tool is available or not. And we were like so overwhelmed and also so glad to have this good problem of not being able to do content for you all. So what we did is like at Hacktoberfest, we have a bunch of like SDKs that we have, which are really popular: Rust, JavaScript, and Python. We opened it up for you to write any framework and build a starter kit for it. There are not so many specific rules or restrictions. You could definitely implement an app that you previously showed, something like that. So what I would suggest is like if you have a specific programming language, say Rust, and you want to learn it, as well as like want to build something for the community and contribute it as part of your open source journey, I think you could do that with this challenge. Of course, there is an incentive. We don't want to leave you go. Like you could get something from the SurrealDB store. So there are a bunch of developers who are already working on it. So like quite a few people, as you could see, different frameworks. So if you are someone who wants to like give it a shot, happy to do that. That's it. That's about the challenge, and I'll paste this link into the stream as well, so that you can take a look at it. Yeah, and here we go. Rapid fire.
Cool. I'll update all the links in the description. So just give me a second while you answer the questions. I'll do that. And let me just put some questions on the screen.
Yeah, we are using the Arc browser. I think someone was asking like what browser is it? Like I have this feeling of, whenever I see something on
Yeah,
internet and then hey, what is the tool? I really want to get to know it. And then and then it's difficult. So yeah, it's Arc
it's
browser. And I think the app is Stickies app, which the source code is already available and you could clone that one and yeah, build it. Okay.
a quick
I think
shout out to Misha, who's actually built the whole Stickies app, and he's also the one who has. So Misha is our colleague and is an amazing engineer, and he's also the one who put me on Arc. So yeah, currently I'm using the Arc browser. Sorry, Arvind, please go ahead.
no, fine. Yeah. So, what type of SurrealDB will it have? Store procedures or functions? Uh, yeah, I think like yeah, it will have functions, custom functions as well, or specific functions related to it. Uh, yeah, stored procedures. I think is it's a bit different, and I think we have a different flair of it, and that developers would enjoy it a bit more, doing it a bit more in a different fashion. So how is it different from other databases in the market? Well, like I think if you have seen the entire story that I have narrated of developers trying to build applications and using different stores, different data stores, right? You can't do the same thing with, say, other databases like say a search, a graph functionality, say a vectors functionality, and like all of these are tried to appropriate it to the other use case. Now that's not only the thing, the performance that you get in a lightweight binary and the way that you could make it work with other different systems that's already there, storage engines like TypeKB, Foundation DB, HDB. So all of these, I think those are amazing. So it's very different from other databases, and I think from simplification, developer experience, and a lot of those, I think it shines really well. Just give it a shot and see if you could use it. SurrealDB, we already have a lot of huge community, so who could also help you get started in this area. Next, if you want to take that, what namespace types in SurrealDB?
So namespace is a concept which sits over a database. Um, Basically, you can have multiple databases inside a namespace. All the concept of namespace helps. So when you have a bigger application on, and when there are multiple small databases sitting inside it, it helps you to make sure that the data is not mismanaged between different databases. And I don't think namespace types is the right way to look at namespaces. But yeah, you can find more information on the um, documentation as such. But yeah, to give you a quick brief understanding of namespace, it sits in terms of the whole structure of the database system.
Yeah.
I hope that helps, Harshal. Yeah.
Okay. I think you could always contribute to SurrealDB. It's source available and then it's already there. We have a contributing.md. You could also quickly do that. After learning SurrealDB, do we need to learn MySQL or other one? You don't need to. In fact, actually, you might not have a background in databases at all. You could still easily use SurrealDB because you don't need to learn SQL as such. You can also use the APIs or SDKs to directly talk to the SurrealDB. But in general, databases like a very core thing for any engineering, computer science student. So yeah, it enables you to learn a lot of things and make it look easy. So if you ever get into after using SurrealDB, if you ever get into using older databases or other databases, you start feeling like, why does this suck? You might feel like that. So yeah, so it's very modern and cloud native.
Yes. What are the prerequisites of SurrealDB? I think it's the same question that it's basically the same thing that Arvind mentioned. Having a basic understanding of how a database works is going to be helpful. But we've made sure that even if you basic computer knowledge is again a prerequisite for SurrealDB, but we have made sure that any concept that is included in SurrealDB is well linked to its background knowledge. So coming back to the question, basic database understanding would be the prerequisites for SurrealDB.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. What is the best way to start SurrealDB? I hope that this is about learning SurrealDB. So if you are looking at learning SurrealDB, of course, please join our community. We could handhold you while you are asking more and more questions. That's the best way, because there are other community members who would also help you. And we do many other things in our Discord community, like maybe developer office hours and all. But other than that, you could also go to the docs, download and run this on your own. So that you could learn by that manner as well. Yeah. One interesting thing that I found out with SurrealDB is like maybe it's so new and it's so modern that even you can't go to ChatGPT and ask questions about SurrealDB. Maybe it will not tell you, because SurrealDB is like done after ChatGPT. So it's very interesting that way as well. So please join our community and maybe we'll help you teach more about that as well. So is Surreal better than MongoDB? Obviously, right? And that's what we are trying to hammer here. But otherwise, what is the best approach that you could do is we have a lot of developer tooling. We have a lot of things that are focused at you building apps in a much easier manner. And this is not just words. You could go and experience live queries, and you could go and experience how we are doing change data capture or see change feeds. Those are like really small. Like I know you would have known triggers on databases, and triggers enable you to do several of these events notifications, but they are too old. Or in the modern databases, you have to follow schema, and you can't do schema less, or schema itself is like a constraint, right? It's a rule, or it's a tightly set thing. In several other databases, be it MongoDB, be it Elasticsearch, there are several conditions, or because the databases are not exactly built for that use case, and they have maneuvered themselves into these areas so that they could adopt to that developer base as well. But whereas with SurrealDB, it's completely different. And we, from the beginning, we are trying to build it for an application developer, or a developer who is trying to build various other use cases in this area. Yeah. Hope that answered the questions, and happy to help more if you have more information. Like, and we also have a comparison doc on how SurrealDB does in this area as well. Is Surreal best option in comparison to PostgreSQL? I think I have taken a vote to not talk bad about PostgreSQL, so I'll skip this question. But otherwise, I think PostgreSQL is amazing, the wire protocol and everything. So RDBMS have their own way of doing things, and Postgres is amazing at what they do. SurrealDB is much better in terms of like how you handle the tables, how you probably enable something like vectors, wherein you in Postgres you might need a PG vector types extension, and Postgres scaling is very different distributed wise. You have that solved here, so it's modern in that outlook as well. Yeah. Francisco, Pratim, you want to take this one?
Yeah, Francesco, you can find details about different integrations on our documentation page. On our documentation, we have we have the major SDKs available, and we are also building the ones that are coming soon. We also have some example applications on our blogs, on awesome Surreal repository. There are some applications that are built by the community. So the website is the best way to go through and find any details about how to build an application with SurrealDB. I hope that has helped answer your question, Francesco.
Which are commands for seeing list of all existing namespaces in databases in SurrealDB?
Harshal, I don't know the command by heart, but you
Yeah.
can definitely find it on the
Document.
documentation page.
Yeah, you have this show. I think there are a bunch of commands which I recently learned in this space, like show and you could also find it out in the documentation. It's very exhaustive in that manner. What security measures should be taken to protect data in SurrealDB? The good part with SurrealDB is like the authentication stuff that we do automatically, and there are different data in different scopes that you could attach. If you go to the site and if you kind of like look at the permission space, say like you could also do root access, namespace access. Say as I speak, like I'm also looking at this. The third party authentication specific ciphers that we support, so there are many things, so you could enable the scopes at different levels, not just at table or something else. So just go to the SurrealDB and then hit the permissions documentation area, and then you will find out more things about it. Yeah, this is something very interesting to cover as well. Yeah, I think SurrealDB is asset compliant. You could do transactions as well. And one other thing that I would tell, like there is OLTP and OLAP, and there are there are many databases which either do one of these, maybe even they don't tell it out loudly. SurrealDB is one such database which gives a chance to do somewhere in the middle, and you could probably do great systems that are like the transactions, and also like be more of like analytical workloads. It's quite useful for that as well. Yeah.
I think we answered most of the questions. Let me just look if there are any other left. By the way, I've also left the links in the description below, GitHub and the Hacktoberfest thing. Okay, got one more.
Yeah. Does it provide predictable performance? If yes, what algorithms or techniques used to achieve it? Yeah, I think Pratim, you could talk about LSM tree or whatever.
So, Madhusudan, I wouldn't like to comment on it right now. The reason is we have blogs and engineering blogs coming out where our engineering team would be authoring them, talking more about how the backend has been built and how SurrealDB has performed different performance metrics and everything. So I think the best thing for us to do is check them out on the blog once they're live. I don't think talking about it in the crash course would do justice for it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there is the source code is available, but also like I said, there are data structures like LSM tree, which is not traditional. We also did the time adaptive radix trie. Trie is a data structure, and there's a radix trie is another data structure, and we did more about time adaptive radix trie structure in the SurrealKV, which is an Apache license project. So definitely take a look at it. If you are more interested in techniques and how the distributed system works, we are interested to have a conversation as well. Yeah. Cool. I think here's a feedback comment.
Yeah, we answered most of the questions.
I would answer one more question on this chat actually, Kunal, which is more about around data analytics use case, right? Power BI or Tableau. So if you are trying to use it with other BI tools, the thing here is we don't have a ODBC driver or a driver that's specifically written for that. And we welcome all sorts of contributions, but that if that is something that interests to you, you could come comment in the community, and then probably we will prioritize that feature as well. We'll see how it works. But then I think out of the box today, we don't have a connector as such for Tableau or Power BI. We are actively working on different types of drivers that would probably fit in to this use case as well. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Kunal.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for joining, everyone. And this was a really lovely session. I love how people were so interactive. I think what you can do is just join the SurrealDB community on Discord. All the links can be found. Pradyum, you are late. but anyway, it's fine. It's being recorded. But yeah, you can join the Discord server and ask your questions over there. And the Hacktoberfest link is also in the description below, so you can take part. And all the unanswered questions that we have, feel free to share. Lastly, for the hoodie, whatever you learned in this session, you can tweet and tag SurrealDB. And I think either Pratim or Arvind, you can select few winners, 1, 2, whatever, how many you want, and you can send them this nice hoodie. But yeah, this was really fun, and I think we should do one more later on as a follow-up.
Definitely.
With a mini project or something. That would be pretty cool. Nice.
Definitely.
Yeah, this was really nice, and thanks everyone. And I'll update the links of the speakers as well, the socials in the description, so you can follow them. But yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.